Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next episode of the Mindful Investor Podcast show. It's so good to have you here with us, listening, learning, improving ourselves. And, real estate is one of the best ways to build wealth and future for your family. And excited. I'm learning alongside with you, but I'm very, very lucky to have my co-host who's, it's difficult to call people experts because, there's always more and more to learn, but like true experts know that there's still so much more to learn, and yet they already have like this amazing foundation. So my co-host is Steve Rosenberg. Steve, good morning.
Hey. Good morning, Alex. I agree. I think I don't think of myself as an expert. I think of myself as a student. And, the day you stop learning is the day you start going backwards. You never stay the same. I've always learned. And, every time you think that you're the expert, you'll run into someone else who's better. You do martial arts, right? You know that every time you think that you're the baddest person, there's someone else that will come in and give you a lesson, right?
Yeah, that happens. And also it's this constant practice and constant improvement. It's true for anything. Like you black belt, I don't care, third degree black belt, in 2 years, in a year, in 6 months, you just lose it. You lose a lot of it or most of it or some of it. But our guest today hasn't lost it in many years. He's
a black belt,
a young buck, but he's been at it for a while.
Yeah, he's a black belt in real estate, I would say. He's one of those guys who's he does the fundamentals, right? That's martial arts. You do the fundamentals over and over and over again to perfection. And our good friend, Rick Jarman, who, if you follow him on social media, he's the old school real estate. Rick, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate you being on.
Well, I really appreciate y'all having me on. I always tell folks I'm excited to be here. I'd rather be here than in the best jail in Tuscaloosa.
Well, that's good to know.
Well, does real estate take you on a tour of multiple jails? I don't know if that's a thing, but yeah, Rick, it's really good to have you. It's fascinating. I've been reading your bio, looking at your videos, and you've done it for longer than any other guest we've had it here, and you've been successful, but you've also got knocked down many times. So, like, we want to explore both the wins and the failures with you today, but maybe you can tell folks a little bit about like how you got started, what motivated you, and like the excitement of making your first few dollars.
Okay.
That would be cool to know.
Yeah, well, if I go all the way back, of course, me being 64 years old, my story's kind of long, but I started doing construction between my 11th and 12th grade of high school. And I found out then I loved it. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. So my senior year of high school, I'd been working all my life. My dad was a World War II veteran, had a complete mental breakdown when I was 3 years old. So he was in the VA hospital till I was like 15. Well, I got married at 18. So my dad was more like a big brother. But when he got sick, this would have been 1958. Well, those days, the women didn't work most of the time. The mothers stayed home, were housewives. Well, my mom didn't have a job, didn't even drive. And I don't know if they sold their house or lost their house, but the house, the car. I found out about 4 years ago, I have an older brother that we were homeless for about 9 months to a year. And, I'm sorry. I know now why my mother worked so hard to keep a roof, over our head. So she instilled in us to work. So I had to work all my life, started really early. So anyway, I discovered construction. I knew I loved it. So I meet my wife, my senior year of high school. She's a little bit older than me, but she didn't know it because I was in her brother's band. But anyway, I was playing music 6 nights a week at the Ramada Inn. So I paid down on a mobile home. I find a piece of land. The guy finances for me for $500 down. I put a septic tank in, water me. So that's my first piece of property I ever bought. I hadn't turned 18. So I graduate from high school. Right before I graduated, they delivered the mobile home and it gets destroyed. So right off the bat, I'm like, 18-wheeler hit it when they was delivering it. So, that's, I'm thinking, man, if I got to pay for this thing, because I'm just 17, fixing to turn 18 years old. I've been 18 a couple of days. So anyway, I get out of school. I get a job at a cabinet shop, minimum wage, $1.60 an hour. My wife, she was going to college. She dropped out till we get on our feet. Just a few months later, a couple of months, I said, I knew I couldn't live off that. I get into the union for a labor on construction job, just the bottom low as you can go, and then I find out about the carpenter apprentice program, and I say, hey, how do you get in this thing? Well, my foreman said, you just go down and tell them you want to join. Well, it didn't work like that, but I worried them for 30 days, and I finally got to take the test, so I become a carpenter apprentice. So I was kind of started learning my trade, and that was the start of it. I was one of these that was hustling, always doing work on the side. Things got a little tougher in the industry. I had a chance to get on to the University of Alabama in maintenance.
And what year was this?
I graduated high school in 1973.
That's when I was born.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So I got on at the university in October of 74. So I'm working at the University of all things in housing, in the dorms, and the rental property. Never was in the classroom. So what better training, for having rental property. So my wife decides to go back to school. So I go to doing side work, for people. And I did some work for a man that had rental property. And, that was my first exposure to somebody owning property and renting it. Of course, all my life, my mother had always said, you want to own your own house. You don't want to rent, because we've had, they had to rent all those years. So I'm doing this work for the man who owns this rental property. I'm thinking, this might be something right here. So at this point, we're still living in the mobile home, where we sell it. And we decided to get our first house. I was 21 years old. We bought it. We had a second mortgage on it, for almost as much, not about a third of what the house was. But, I didn't have any money to get in it. But we bought this house. My wife and I fix it up. We flip it. We go to our second house. We buy it. Both these loans, we assumed FHA loans. Second house, we buy it, fix it up, flip it. So by the third house, which was, I was 21 when we bought the first one. 2 years later, we'd lived in 3 houses, and I'd soon, we went from like a 700 square foot house built after World War II to a 1,800 and something square foot brick house with an acre of land. And, so I'm thinking this is good, so that was my first flipping. But I just was still learning my trade and working on the side. But by 1981, I bought my first rental house. So
Rick, did anybody give you advice on how to buy that rental, or was it just stuff that you had seen and you kind of thought, I'm going to dive into this? Or did you have a strategy based on the work that you did for the other gentleman?
Just working with the other guy. And I read an article, and I'm going to date myself, in Reader's Digest. It was called Beating Inflation with Real Estate. And this article would probably been somewhere in the late 1980 or before I bought the first house. And it listed 3 books that, that I said, I believe I'll get those 3 books. Actually, my mother said, I'm in 1981, I've got 1 child and maybe another one on the way or whatever, my kids are 18 months apart in age. But my mother says, what would you like for Christmas? I said, I'd like to get these 3 books, And the 3 books were a guy named William Nickerson. If you look, he's probably the oldest person you'll find, or further back you'll find somebody writing about real estate investing. His book came out in the 60s. And the second book was by Robert Allen. I think it was Nothing Down, or,
Money Down, yeah.
And the third one was by a guy named Albert J. Lowry. I can't remember the title. I probably should have got it before we sat down here. But it's kind of funny. I keep those 3 books in my bedroom on a stand, with bookends. So it reminds me,
Now, question, how relevant are those books today? Like, are they, I know the answer in my mind, but do you think they're time dated and stamped just for them? Or are the principles, the general principles, still relevant to what people could do today?
Definitely. That's why I always tell people, real estate doesn't change, financing changes.
The words change,
the terms change, but I tell them, I said, either going to rent or buy or live under the bridge, and only so many can live under the bridge. When I first got on Instagram about 9 months ago, my first dose of real social media, besides Facebook, I thought Instagram was Facebook for young people. I had to learn all these abbreviations. I didn't know what half this stuff meant,
Yeah.
It's the terminology, but nothing changed about the business.
So Rick, if you flash forward to today, now, for people that follow you on social media, you're the old school real estate. I follow you and you do a video every single day.
Every day.
And that's kind of what you do, and the great videos. I'm curious, how does that tie into your real estate world? And let everyone know, where are you in your real estate cycle now, as far as assets that you own and what you do and how you balance your life?
Okay. Well, for 31 years, I went full time in this business in 1984. In 1983, I got my real estate license, not because I wanted to be a real estate agent. I thought it'd help me find more deals because I was flipping houses and buying rentals. So by 1984, I had been doing remodeling and things, on houses and flipping and work for other people. So by 1984, I turned 29 in May of 1984. And in June of 1984, I told my wife, I said, I'm fixing to go in this business full time. I'm going to start building houses. And, by this time, she's a teacher. She was a special ed teacher. And we had 2 little kids. I'd been on my job for 10 years at the university, and I'd been a part-time realtor for a year. So I quit 2 jobs in one day. And I started my career as a builder. Built for 31 years up to 2015, I turned 60, and I said, that's enough. I built approximately 500 houses. I did remodeling, whatever the economy would need to let us do. If we needed to remodel, we remodeled. If we needed to do commercial remodeling, we did it. We was always building. And all through this, I'm buying property. And, of course, I can back up. We went through some hard times in the late 90s, like a lot of people. And but to kind of bring you forward to today, we just flip a few houses because my son works with me. He's been with me, he'll be 20 years in May. He's 38 years old, right when he come out of high school, just like I did. He's a licensed home builder. I'm a licensed home builder. He kind of followed in my path. He doesn't do the real estate. I became a broker in 1976, but we just fool with flipping houses, and we have between 100 and 125 rental houses, depending on which day you're looking at,
And these are in Tuscaloosa, Alabama?
Everything I have is in Tuscaloosa County.
Okay. All right.
2 cities, Northport and Tuscaloosa side, they're across the river from each other. We self-manage, so I have a full-time maintenance man, my son, myself, I have an office manager, and then I got another guy that might as well say he's a full-time. He's been working for me every day for 5 years now. And we just do that. We collect the rent and flip houses. And if you want to try to find my number, I get people all the time saying, don't you want to grow your business? You know how they do on here on social media. Yeah. I said, no, I'm not trying to grow. I'm just trying to enjoy things now, because the building was stressful.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Now, real quick, and I think Alex probably has some questions for you, I'm sure. I'm just curious, how does the Instagram technology weave into what you're doing? Like, why did you even get into that world? Because you don't need it. Okay. I'm just curious the draw.
Okay. And at any point, y'all need to tell me if I'm telling you too many details and too much stuff. Because
I think this is good for our listeners, because there's many people that were what you were doing 30 years ago that are today, you know. And again, that's why I think it's so relevant to ask you if those books were time stamped or the concept was time stamped, which I don't think it is. And it sounded like you agreed with me.
Right.
And Alex, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that many of our listeners want to know, like, okay, yeah, he did this 30 years ago. That's not relevant. Well, it is relevant, because the dirt didn't change from 30 years ago to today. The four walls and a roof doesn't change. The money coming in doesn't change. So it is very relevant. And I think you have a lot of knowledge to teach people. And that's why I'm curious, the shift that you did to Instagram and social media, I'm just curious what that was for.
Okay. Here's how it came about. My son introduced me to Bigger Pockets podcast about 2 years ago. You know, and I'm listening because, you know, I'm always wanting to learn. I've always been that way. I never went to a day of college. I barely got out of high school. I tell folks all the time, I can't spell, but I can add like hell, you know. So that's kind of but he introduced me to the podcast, and I was listening to it, and I think, you know, not trying to think I did a lot. I said, but you know, I did a lot of stuff. You know, I might need to see if I can get on this show. So I'm thinking, now I'm new to all this. So I'm saying, well, how do you get on the show, you know? So I get to thinking, well, I said, well, David Green, he's a real estate agent. His number's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
So I find his number. I go on the web and find his number, and I'm sending him some messages, and I leave a call and leave a message, text him a few times, and excuse me. And I don't hear from him. Well, I'm not the kind to give up. So I sent a couple more, and finally he sends me a message telling me how you go on their website and how you fill out. And so I go to their website, and it needs you to write out, you know, the bio, basically, like, you know, you talked about for here. So I do the bio. I stay up to 1 o'clock working on that thing. And I'm not much on this kind of stuff, you know. Well, darn, when I go to send it, I think I lost it. So I said, well, heck. So the next day I do another one, and then I send them a message. I said, look, you may have 1 or 2 letters from me. I don't know. I said, but just pick out the one you like the best and go with it. And of course, I hadn't heard anything from them, you know, and I'm the kind, I said, well, heck, you know, I'll just do my own podcast. So I went on there and started looking on YouTube, what you do, your mics and garage band and learning all this stuff. Well, you needed a website. Well, I don't even have a website. So I was trying to get 2 or 3 people to do a website for me, and it never came about. And I said, well, heck, it's just too much work. I don't think I want to fool with this. I think I'll do me a YouTube channel. So I go and set me up a YouTube channel. All along, I'm learning all this off of YouTube. Well, it's slow, you know, and of course I didn't really know. I didn't know about thumbnails and stuff. I started learning on a couple of them, but then I couldn't quit doing that. And I didn't have hardly anybody to follow me. I said, well, let's not have nothing anybody wants to hear. Well, I forgot who it was. Somebody said, well, try Instagram. Well, I didn't have a clue what Instagram was. So I go on YouTube, and I got a 15-year-old granddaughter who was 14 at the time. I'm trying to get her to tell me a few things, and heck, she's too busy, you know, and I'm thinking, well, I'll just stick to YouTube and learn it. So I get on Instagram, it just kind of takes off. So I had no plans of doing anything with it other than I just wanted to share and help people.
Sure. Yeah, no, the knowledge you have is great. And for people that are learning, I mean, it's great knowledge. And, you know, that's what I think is great about real estate is it's a zero-sum game for everyone. If I help you, it's not like I'm not helping myself. You know, I'm on this show and I'm not an expert, I don't think. I'm just someone who's learning, and I'm a student, a life student. I learn from everyone else. I learn from the Bigger Pockets people. I learn from the forums. You know, I'm curious, looking at your story, I'm curious, you had a tornado come through and decimate, you know, or damage 75 homes. That to me would be something that would probably make some people push out of the game and say, I'm done. Obviously you didn't. I've had similar damages.
Okay.
So
one more thing about the Instagram, and I'll be done with that. I've been really blessed. I have like 5,700 something followers in about 8, 9 months.
Wait, 5,700?
Yes.
Yeah.
Steve, how many you have?
3,500. Yeah, I know, right?
You got owned.
I
Steve,
know.
how long have you been on Instagram?
About a year and a couple months. Yeah.
Rick, how about you? 9 months?
About 8 or 9 months.
He's
yeah.
killing it, man. I know. Hey, I'm a student. I'm the best student.
Yeah.
I'll raise my hand and learn, man.
I just, I don't do any writing along with mine. I just do a title and I post the video.
Yeah.
And it's, they say they say a lot of people like it because it's organic. I call it half-assed, but I guess it works,
You know what it is? It's real. It's you talking real about real things. You're not talking these big words to sound like you're smarter than everybody else. You're just giving the down-home information that all investors should know. The stuff you talk about, kind of like similar to the stuff I think I talk about. It's common sense stuff. I'm not creating anything magical or new. It's just real information. And I think that's what people really want to know. Once the fluff is gone, they want to know, what do I do on day 2 when the tenant says I lost my job and I'm not leaving your rental property? What do you do then, Mr. Instagram fancy car and all these other things? They don't have those answers. Only people like us that have been in the grind and in the trenches that have dealt with these things, that have walked properties that have been stripped of wiring, trashed out, that can actually walk that walk to say, this is how I handled it. Not sure it's right, but this is how I did it. And this is how I came out to fight another day to become better at it, is my
right. I mean, and they have accepted me and my average age of my followers are 24 to 35. And my largest city is New York and then LA. And I'm thinking, man,
There you go. There you go.
So Rick, what advice would you give, or sort of maybe even you have so much experience, maybe like what would be the playbook for someone starting today? For example, someone has been listening, someone has been learning, reading books, kind of like myself, but has not really taken the first step. Like, what strategy would you recommend? I understand an old goal-dependent individual, but what would you recommend somebody to do and to get started in this economy, in the current situation?
Well, we've got such a great economy and interest rates are unreal. I mean, I always tell people, if you don't think, go and look at the history of the interest rates. I tell them from 1973 when I come out of high school. When I come out of high school, we had a gas embargo. We would line up at gas pumps, hoping we'd get gas to go to work on next week. Look at the interest rates. Look at how many recessions we've had. Like I said, right out of high school, I'm in the middle of a recession. But I would tell them, don't be afraid to get started. You're going to mess up. We all do. And we still mess up. But what I see most with a lot of the young people, they're scared. They want to know everything's going to be okay. They want you to tell them everything, like, how do I get started? And I can tell them 3 or 4 things and then they're ready. And it's not like that. You know, you've got to get a direction. You've got to find out if you want to flip houses, buy investment property, wholesale, whatever it is you want to do. You've got to know a direction that you want to go and then what market you want to be in. And then you just got to get started.
Yeah. Alex, it's funny. I was on a panel last night in Houston.
I saw that. It was Facebook Live. I saw that.
Yeah. And it's funny. The one thing that, there was a person, one of the representatives is, I think he was a COO for Camden Apartments, which is one of the largest apartment complex owners in the country. And there was, some very well-known wholesale person, hard money lender. So it was all different walks of life in real estate. And the one thing that we all agreed on was that at some point in the future, a recession will come. Don't know when, but it is going to happen, right? When that happens, every year, you don't know. And every year they say, is a recession coming this year? Is there going to be a dip? The only thing we can guarantee is, someone will win and someone will lose. What's funny is more wealth is created in a down economy than there is in an up economy. In the up economy, you're paying retail pricing. The down economy, everyone's running away from real estate, very much like, our co-founders, Doug and Colin. They were running in to buy properties with Waypoint and when everyone else was running out. And that's when it's on sale. That's when the deals happen. And again, it takes education, it takes knowledge. And I think it takes that fortitude to actually say, you know what, everyone's telling me I'm crazy. That's when I need to go in and buy, because that's the time that you are actually going to create exponential wealth. And again, when you're new, you don't want to be that one that's risking your family, your career. And obviously, you know, everybody is comfortable in their zone and they're comfortable with their life. And this is an outlier doing something that's real estate, because it's something you should do. It's not something you must do.
Right.
And I think that, you know, Rick, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think for you, it was something that it was a must for you. Just like myself, 9/11, I had to have a must with the airline industry. So it was a different perspective for me and probably Rick and many people out there. And if people had that perspective, like it was a must, I think you would see more action being taken by new people than I should do it, not this week because I'm busy, you know, that kind of thing.
Well, I just didn't want to grow old and not know I tried. And I didn't want to, you know, I had a good job, you know, University of Alabama was just a good, you know, good job in maintenance. But, you know, you just can't be a quitter. Like I said, when they were delivering my mobile home, it was destroyed. They said they'd have another in 2 weeks. It was 2 months. We're living with my parents after I got married, waiting on the mobile home. We sell it. We buy our first house. We're not in it 2 weeks while we're remodeling it. The air conditioner goes out. I didn't have money for a central unit. We're sleeping in the screened-in porch because it's 100 degrees in Alabama. We sell it. We go, so things was going pretty good. So I buy my first rental house. Went good, 1981. I buy the second one. It's totaled by fire. You know, I had my first fire, and I'm thinking, oh, Lord, you know. But I did all remodeling myself. And, you know, they wanted to total it, and it was better for me insurance-wise if they didn't. So I had a guy to be the contractor, and I did the work. Things are going to happen. You know, fast forward, I'm building houses. Give you a quick story. You know, I told you I went to work at a cabinet shop. I was just turned 18 years old. It's 1973. We're on break one day. Well, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to build houses. And I was stupid enough one day on break, I made the statement, I'm going to build houses one day. And they laughed. I mean, they're looking at me. Here I am learning how to sand wood and not go over the grain and stuff, you know, and I'm talking about wanting to be a home builder. But, you know, I went on, you know, I become a laborer on the construction job. Like I said, got in the apprentice program, started doing work. Anyway, 1984, I started building my first house. By 1993, I'm building so many houses, I need a second cabinet shop. Guess who I hired? The man I worked for in 1973. It's 20 years later. Now, I never said nothing, but every time I wrote a check to him, I thought about it.
Put a little happy face on your signature, a little smiley, squiggly.
You know, so.
This is challenging. You brought up a very, very good point. So mindset, like Steve, you like the mindset. You love this.
Yeah.
You know, having to do stuff like I've started businesses. I've done things. I've exited businesses and, you know, and put in 18-hour days. You know, you do what you have to support your family, to make sure your family is happy. But you're absolutely right. Like, this isn't must. Like, you know, for me, do I want to like invest? Like, for me, it's like, all right, I invest enough time to learn, understand about it. And I'm sure folks that are listening might be in a similar boat. You know, you keep listening to, you kind of in the community,
yeah.
but you're not actually playing the game, because you're absolutely correct. Like, this has just hit me. This is why I love these podcasts. Like, it's not a must. So what do you say to those folks who's like, a lot of people have some money stashed away, stock market, whatever, but it's not a must?
Well, I think that I'll just give you my perspective, and Rick, I'd love to hear what you think. I think that, you know, we get comfortable in our zone and we get comfortable with the people around us, and those people around us, you know, what they say resonates with us, right? And what I think is funny, as a kid, you're told, and we tell our children, you can be whatever you want to be. You can be successful. You can be an astronaut. You can be a president. You can do whatever you want to do. And then at some point when you become an adult or you're 18 years old like Rick and you're working in a cabinet shop and you go, I'm going to start doing this, it changes. Then go, you're a moron. You'll never make money. You'll fail. So at what point do we go from saying you can be whatever you want to be to you can't do it? You'll fail. You'll lose everything. That's stupid. Take the safe, secure job. It's actually not safe and secure. It's the least safe and secure. And I learned it from, being a pilot with 9/11. Rick learned it from his upcoming. So the people that you hang around with, I try to hang around with people that say, you know what? Double down, do it. That's what I want. I don't want the people that say, you know what? You don't need that. It's okay. Because it's really them saying they don't know how to do that or they don't want to do that. And the last thing they want, deep down, is my belief at least, they would hate to see you succeed when they go, man, I should have done it too. And that's, Rick, you tell me.
Yeah, it's like when I left university, the guys, they nobody come out and wish you bad, but they want to see you fail because it reassures them they did right staying where they're at.
Yep, absolutely. And Rick, would you say going back and to someone like Alex, right? You got someone like Alex he's got a great job with an amazing company. He's got a great future. He's financially stable, financially set. He doesn't have a must. He has a should. How would you get someone like Alex to understand why it is a must or how to ask himself that question? So we got a little coaching here for Alex.
Okay. Well, let me tell you this. I don't want y'all to think it's all been gravy,
Oh, I know that.
Like I said, I started at 84. By, I'd say the time I was 33, I was a millionaire. And then by the time 1998, the same time around 97, 98, where President Trump got in trouble and a lot of other people, I got in trouble. My building business, I'd gotten away from, I was just all into speculative building and, you had the golden touch. It's like you can't do any wrong.
Yeah.
I had 35 rental houses. I had a 16-unit apartment complex. I had a 10-unit apartment complex. And all of a sudden, it's like no matter what, we kind of went into a recession. It's like no matter what you do, things aren't working. I'm out here with like 20-something spec houses, nothing selling, no way of making money. And I literally had to sell off all of my rental. I sold off everything. I had to start over. I'm talking about, I couldn't get a $19 pager in my name. I'm 43 years old. I got a daughter fixing to start college. So I've been from nothing to something back to nothing. And that's when you find out what you made of.
Yeah.
That's, but it's easier second time around because you're a lot smarter.
I was just going to ask you that because everyone I know, myself included, has hit rock bottom financially in their investing career, in their mental state of what they're doing. When you get punched by real estate or reality, it punches very hard and it's relentless. Yeah. It doesn't just punch you once. It will punch you into the ground many, many times over. And you're right. That is where you decide how bad do you really want it? How bad are you willing to get back up and punch back and fight? Because now that you have that knowledge, and this is why, Alex, you mentioned the mindset. This is why I'm such a big believer in that is once you have the reason why, you have your why, the how is easy, right? When you have your why are you doing it? And that is what's driving you. That is easy to duplicate over and over again with the how. When you don't have a why and you don't have that drive, you're first flinch. He could have stopped on the second house fire and said, this sucks, I'm out, right? I mean, that's very easy to do, but his why was stronger and he created that. And that's, I just think something you've got to go through mentally with the gymnastics of it all to figure out, is your why stronger than your how?
So 98, I pulled my tools back out and I started doing what I did when I was I started doing work for other people, remodeling again and built myself back up. There were people that knew me and believed in me that wanted to do business with me. That's why I have a video on my Instagram telling how you work with partners. Like they would be the money, I'd be the talent. I told exactly how we worked everything. I read a book by Trammell Crow. Are you familiar with Trammell Crow? He owns like Lincoln Properties. He was in line to be the richest man in the United States, but he got caught up in a commercial downturn in commercial real estate. And I mean, he was wealthy. I mean, anyway, he had a book called Trammell Crow Master Builder. And in it, he shows how he worked with different partners. None of the partners were related. It was like a spider web, and he's in the center. And he would work in all these different companies. And that's what I did. I had accountants that I was working with, lawyers, people that knew that I knew how to make money and what to do, and I could get it done. And they, you know, we split the profit at the end. They'd come up with the money. And then when I reached the point I didn't have to have them, a lot of them said, well, I guess you don't want to do, which I don't have any partners I deal with anymore now but my son. And but that helped me get started again, because like I said, I couldn't even get a pager in my name. $19 and something. I was upside down. But you either pull the cover over your head, or you get up and lace up your bootstraps and you go to work. And I saw a movie. It was after I'd done, you know, I'd come back, and it hit home. You ever seen the movie Cinderella Man?
Yes.
True story about the boxer.
Yeah.
You remember when he's sitting there talking to his family, I mean, doing that interview, and they asked him, what's the difference in you now than your career before? Because, you know, he got caught up in the depression, you know, when it hit and lost everything. He says, I know what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for milk.
Yeah, he's got a why. His why was stronger, right? Now, all of a sudden, he's not just fighting to fight.
You know, I've got a daughter starting college and a son, you know, in a private school. My wife's still working as a teacher, but I got the daggum IRS taking $1,000 a month out of her salary. You know, I had a partner at the time in the construction company, and that was a lot of it. But, you know, you can't blame the blame on somebody else. You got to take responsibility and suck it up.
Yep. Yep.
But anyways, the long story short of it, it was hard. You know, I look back now, there was about 2 years. Now it's just like a bump in the road. But when you're going through it, it was tough.
Yeah.
I've been blessed, you know, I was probably worth $1.5 million then. My net worth is several million now. I live in a neighborhood at 2 houses up from me. If you're a sports fan, Nick Saban, coach of Alabama football, lives 2 houses up from. I'm in a pretty nice little neighborhood, old country boy. So I ain't even told you about when I started out, my first job that I paid taxes on. I was 14 years old. I worked on a garbage truck for the city of Northport. Now that don't look too promising when you see your friends playing and you hanging on the back of a garbage truck.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
You know, I show my kids, you know how we always tell our kids, yeah, this is what I did when I showed them in 1969. I was 14 years old, because after that summer, working on the garbage truck, I got on that bottling company. I'd get out of school, what they call a hardship case. You know, and I'd work to 7 o'clock at night, loading, unloading trucks, because they got to be loaded next day. Rain, sleet, snow, it didn't matter. I showed them, I said, I paid $700 and something income tax, 1969 at 14 years old on $1.30 an hour. That's a lot of hours.
A lot of hours.
So, you know, I'd worked all my life. And then you get up there and you think you've made it. And then everything's upside down. And you think, what was all the hard work for? What?
Yeah.
You know, I'm busted. You know, I don't get into this on my Instagram because a lot of people aren't ready for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's the truth. It's the reality. And it's very common for a lot of, I mean, you talk to anyone successful and they've got they've got the scars to prove what they went through. All of us have them, right? I mean, everybody gets those things.
If it hadn't been from a rental property, I couldn't still been in business, because I was able to sell it off. You don't know if you ever heard of a thing called phantom income?
Yep.
Okay. I learned a lot about phantom income. When you fire selling your rental property, the government says it's worth this, you paying taxes on money you didn't even get.
Absolutely.
I mean, it can be pardon my French, but it can be a shitstorm. Life can get upside down.
Yeah. Now, Rick, let me ask you this. So coaching session's over for Alex. Now I got a question for you. You'd mentioned that you're doing this with your son, and I'm curious the balance that you have on, you've got 125 homes. That could be a lot of work, right? You know, because you're self-managing in a way, you've got people doing stuff for you, but how do you balance the family life, the you know, the separation between your son as well as business partner, or however you guys have that set up? How do you guys balance that out? And how do you step away from it? Because when you own it as a family, it's hard to remove yourself mentally to say, okay, we're family, it's family time, don't talk real estate. How do you do that?
We pretty much, just like you said, when we're home, we don't, you know, my son started out, see, back before the recession, I had like 16 employees. Excuse me, we did our own framing, vinyl siding. Because see, I hadn't even touched on the recession. I'll answer that question. I'll back up with your first one about the tornado. Okay, I had to start over in 98. We had the recession in 2008. I'm doing good. I mean, man, I am doing great. I've learned a lot of lessons from 1998. We pulled back. I mean, I just bought $1.4 million worth of lots, building lots. But I was able to work that would buy. I mean, I don't want to sound like the recession didn't hurt me, but it didn't, because my rental property carried me through. I had to deal with the banks on some lots and stuff, but because I even had a bond issue back then, you know. I mean, I done built my rentals up. I did the swap like you see in, what's the movie, The Big Short? You know, I did a swap. I'm dealing with banks on that because all of a sudden my fixed rate goes to double what it's supposed to be on $4.something million. And so I'm dealing with them on that, but I'm under a gag order because, you know, when you're under a gag order, they tried to screw you and you won, you know. But that's another whole story. But anyway, the recession came 2008. We're doing good. We just pulled back, fooled our rentals. We actually opened up an interior and antique shop for my daughter-in-law, who's interior designer, had just finished university. She couldn't find a job. My son didn't have any work because we wasn't building other than fooling our rentals. So we opened up a store for 4 years, you know. You make things happen. You do whatever it takes.
I hear you. I hear you.
2009, I was president of the Home Builders Association here in my town. The worst time I could be president, right in the middle of the recession.
Yeah, no one's building, not much building going on then, probably.
I'm trying to hold everything together. So we get through the recession. 2011, we had the tornado hit. I lost 26 houses totaled. I had damage on another 70 something. I had a $2 million insurance claim. Had to deal with that for 3 years. But I had insurance. It was okay, but it takes time to buy them back. The thing I want people to know, stuff happens. I mean, it's, you know, it's life.
I think that's to me, and I know we got to start wrapping up here, but I think that to me is the biggest lesson that I personally took away. It reconfirms myself, and maybe, I don't know if it kind of got through to Alex, but to me, it just happened. It's going to happen. Don't be afraid of failing because you're going to fail. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Don't be afraid of things outside of your, you know, you can't stop a tornado. You know, you can't stand in its way and think that you're going to stop it. Things like that are going to happen. It just happens. It just is, right? It's just part of the sandbox we're all playing in called real estate, in my opinion. Right. And that's kind of the biggest takeaway. And for you doing this for, you know, 30 plus years, it sounds like it doesn't change, right? Technology, non-technology, it just happens.
And I know I've talked a lot, but it's been so many years to try to cover to give you my story. But the tornado, you know, I've got a video where I show some of my houses that were destroyed. But there's even, you know, you just don't know if you've got real estate, you don't know how good it can turn out regardless. Okay. The tornado hit, I lost 9 houses in a row on 7 lots. Okay. It flattened this whole area where these houses were. They're on a road that's leading into the University of Alabama from the interstate. The city comes in and widens the road to buy some parts of people's lots. They couldn't sell their lots. The city buys their whole lots. Now my property was 1 block in. Guess what? Where I lost my houses from the tornado, those 9 houses I own from 1 block to the other, except for 1 lot. They're now road frontage.
Nice.
Because the city widened the road. So now if I hadn't had the lots or the houses to begin with, so now I've got 9 lots there worth about $350,000 with no debt on them. I call it my 401k, just waiting to, you know, they've been redoing the roads and I'll probably sell it off or do a tax-free exchange, but you just don't know what can happen. I mean, it's just, it's exciting. It's like a drug. It's addictive. You ask what I do. I forget I'm almost 64 years old. I'm 65. I'll be 65 in May. I get as excited if I buy a house to flip, if I find a deal. That's what I did a video the other day. I told on here, I said, you might want to go watch it. I said, you people here on Instagram, you inspire me, and you piss me off. I said, pee me off.
I saw that, yeah.
Because it makes me work harder than I want. I get excited. I see other people doing things, and it's hard for me to pull back. Like I said, I was 60 years old before I realized I didn't have to go to the office on Saturday or check a job, because I love it. You know, and I never let it interfere with my kids' ball games and stuff. And I play music. You know, if I wasn't doing any of those items, I worked. I don't hunt. I don't fish. I tell them I hunt them George Washingtons.
Yeah, that's a really good way. So, Rick, I want to say thank you very much for your time and your inspiring story, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating, and I think if folks want to find you, I know you're at Old School Real Estate on YouTube. That's how I found you. Just look for Old School Real Estate on YouTube, and you come across Instagram. And if those of you listening, we appreciate your sticking with the show, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Find us on Facebook. Steve, we're at Mastermind Real Estate Investment Club.
Yeah, the Mastermind Real Estate Investment Club on Facebook, in the Facebook group. Obviously, you can find me on Instagram and Alex and Mynd Property Management. If you do want to talk about management needs, obviously we can help you. Also, we have the Investment software, which is free. And in the Facebook group, we actually do webinars for free that show people how to use this software. It's like the MLS for investors. I mean, I got to say, as an investor, it's pretty slick. So, if you want to know more about it, you can, send me a message. Happy to make the connection. It's a free service to have for investors. They're in, I think, 20 different regions. But again, we're all about educating. We just want people to learn to be better. Rick, I love the stories, man. We got to have you back on. I'd love to hear. I like following you. I like watching your videos. It's inspiring. I do have to pass you at some point in followers. Maybe before we have you on, I will pass you up, or you will just dominate me, and maybe that won't happen. I don't know, but.
Well, my first live, I'm going to go to New York and do a boardroom meeting, 40 people or less. And I never had any plans when this started. I told my wife, we may get some paid vacations out of this thing.
That's right, man.
Goal, so you got to watch. My goal is by April the 18th, I want to have 10,000 followers.
Oh, man.
All right. I'm a goal setter.
I'm the prize.
I'm the guys, I feel like I did nothing but talk on y'all's show, and I apologize if I'm just, it's hard. A lot of years to talk about there.
Yeah, it's invaluable, and I appreciate it. And I'm not even close to where you are, in knowledge. So I soak it up. I'm the best student when it comes to this, and I know Alex is still, kind of figuring out his why, and I think it helps his direction. And I think our guests that watch the show, I think it's helpful for them. I think they really can relate to the fact that you're not this, person pontificating on something that you've never done. You're someone in the grips, battling it out, dealing with it, heartache, problems, and you're finding a way to win. And that's the key. It's like, a good friend of mine always says, when we all win, we all win.
We all win.
Very simple,
One thing I would love to leave your listening audience with: don't end up being 64, almost 65, getting ready to retire, 62. I have a lot of friends that, they work jobs at plants or whatever, or they retire and they don't have anything. I mean, they get their retirement and that's it. And my wife taught school for 25 years. And if I had to live off of what she dropped, she asked me one time, you going to retire at 62? I said, girl, you can't live like you live, me retire.
That's right. That's right.
The thing about it, don't Rick, look back on life and not tried it.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great way to end the show, man. Don't, just like he says, guys, don't be 64, 65, 55, whatever that is, and wake up and realize the one opportunity you had was time. And that's the one thing that will never get back. You can never get back tomorrow. You can't get back this hour. I don't want this hour back because it was great information. So Rick, again, thank you very much for being on the show. Everybody, please subscribe to iTunes, follow us on Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. We're all here trying to help. We're all doing the same thing. So everybody, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate everybody and all the well wishes that we get and the reviews and everything. And again, thank you again. I'm humbled by the fact that everyone loves this show, and me and Alex are really trying to do a great job. So until next week, we'll see everyone later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening.